Sustainable Food System Production by Kenneth Newman. What is a sustainable food system? It is a system of developed parts, and we're going to go over those parts, that create three things: profit, health, and positive environmental impact. First thing is going to be agriculture. The second thing is going to be diets. And last of all, we're going to go over food wasting. In agriculture, there are four main hurdles that we have to having a sustainable food system: water, energy, air, and soil. Water, like overusage of water in regions that could not normally produce farming, fertilizers, pesticides that are used cause pollutants or pollution in the water. Energy. The current agricultural production relies on a non-renewable energy source, and without that source, and it will eventually run out, so will what our current standards are. Air, burning waste causing smoke, enters the atmosphere, lowering the air quality. Nitrous oxide emissions during production contaminates the atmosphere. And then soil erosion, which is tilling of the soil, breaks down the soil. Irrigation runoff takes away from the soil as well. Now, the next thing we're going to go over is diets. What we eat and demand, that dictates what we produce. So I'm going to go over meat, which is, in this example, cows, and local produced foods. So cows are a major source of greenhouse gases. If you look over here on the left, you'll see the secondary resources, which are going to be like your fuel, your electricity, your fertilizers, pesticides, plastics, machinery, and off-farm heifers. So these are going to be the things that are going to be by proxy. Then you have the cows themselves, the feeding procedures, the animals, and the manure handling all affect the atmosphere as well, and the ozone. They all give off CO2s, CH4s, and N2O, which is nitrous oxide. Emissions in this case also breed into when you go into getting it to the local markets, transportation, storage, and so on. So eating more local food sources reduces the transportation and storage. This will lead to less carbon emissions and less waste. Reducing processing of foods we eat will encourage healthier eating and reduces overall health issues. And encouraging smaller farms and businesses brings money to the smaller local governments and boosting the local economies in rural areas. Food waste is next. Food production will have food waste, but by reducing the food waste, it will help reduce the amount of greenhouse gases. Transportation and storage, usage of spoiled foods, making food production more efficient, and changing the ideas of what good food appears to be. Contributions to each of these, if you look at it, it's got a graph. Cereals are going to be very high processed. They're going to have a lot of carbon emissions, and there's going to be a lot of food wastage. Vegetables, there's a lot of food wastage, but the carbon footprint is a lot lower. Meats is going to be similar to your vegetables, and just carbon footprint, and food wastage is going to be a heck of a lot less, but carbon footprint is still dramatic. Milk and eggs, again, one of those things. I'm not telling everybody to be a vegan, but it could help. Fruits are going to be the least wasteful, pretty much, other than your starchy foods, your fish, and then your oils. Processed foods cause waste by transportation, storage, bug infestation, food contamination spreading through the pesticides. If you think about where they're taking your food, where it's coming from, where they're just packaging it all together, it can definitely have a negative effect and waste a lot of excess food. Using spoiled foods by composting. Composting is a big thing because it actually puts the nutrients from those foods that are left over back in. And then it says making production more efficient. Large machinery cannot keep up with the current technology decipher between over and under ripened foods. So it just sort of puts them all in one. Again, excess waste as well. Large production does not mitigate losses as effectively as smaller farms do due to economic factors. In other words, if they have a loss of, 10,000 pounds, they might not feel the effect, and it may be negligible to them, where a local farmer it would be incredibly damaging. And last, the average person, the one thing that they can do, they can look at to help kind of look at things differently is obviously composting their food, reusing it, feeding it to, livestock, stuff like that, and re-putting it into soils, using foods like bruised foods and that are edible instead of just tossing them out, because that's the biggest thing grocery stores do, and purchasing locally. So in other words, make sure you make the local choice rather than the, big box store, or necessarily the, even if it's at the big box store, go for the thing that's locally produced instead of something that's had to be shipped 20 hours to get here. Here's a quick video.
Agriculture sector is about 18% of overall emissions.
This video is about how livestock has a massive effect on our environment.
But it's a mix of those two.
To put that into perspective, that means that sector alone is responsible for more greenhouse gases than all the cars, trucks, trains, ships, and planes combined. Turns out it takes a lot of stuff to make a cow.
Very inefficient, particularly beef, is almost 8 to 1. You use 8 calories to feed that cow for every calorie of meat you get out, because you're building bone and respiration for that cow.
Again, I'm not a vegan, but if you think about it, if you reduce the amount of meat you eat, you reduce the potential that you'll have with more greenhouse gases, and you'll be more effective towards the sustainable food source systems.
10% of our calories or energy in a day from meat. That might sound reasonable until you look at the amount of resources it takes to make that meat compared to the other 90%. If you combined all the land in the US dedicated to raising animals, you would get an
So this one blew my mind, because if you look here, livestock produce like a ridiculous amount, and then the food is a ridiculous amount. But if you actually look at the amount, look at how little land is needed to give us nutrition. And then you hear about them messing with the rainforest and stuff. That's crazy.
That same amount of water could make 75 loaves of whole grain bread and 30 jars of peanut butter. So if I made myself a delicious peanut butter sandwich, which has nearly the identical amounts of both calories and proteins compared to this patty, and then I ate 2 a day, the meat would last me a little over a week, and the sandwiches would last me a little over a year. So that's the same amount of resources used, same amount of calories and protein to me per serving. One just lasted me a year longer because it's a much more efficient energy transfer method.
So, in conclusion, producing more agriculture to sustain, but making it more locally, changing our diets to be more locally, eating a little less meat, food wasting properly. They're not going to solve the issue, but they will start to help solve the bigger issue, like hunger, deforestation, reduce greenhouse gases, and improve overall health. Here's my works cited page, and thank you so much.